Hello, I'm Mark,
I'm Casey.
And I'm Patrick.
and today on TTL Express, we're going to talk a little bit about the U.S. tax credit and what happens if it goes away. But first, let's roll that title, Casey.
You're watching the Tesla Life Express.
Say
Hey,
when.
everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today on the Tesla Life Express. And wanted to talk a little bit about some pertinent information, some in the news information about the U.S. federal tax credit, which currently sits at $7,500 and is available to almost anyone that purchases an EV. And of course, if your tax situation allows you to do so. But there, of course, has been or will be a change in the administration of the United States, and Donald Trump and friends are moving into the White House, and they're most likely, based on the rhetoric that's being thrown around, is that the EV tax credit is in danger of disappearing. So the first thing I want to do is let you know that that is a good possibility. And if you were counting on getting that tax credit, you have approximately 2 months to lock in and purchase a vehicle. So if you haven't, if you're fence sitting, now's the time to make up your mind, because there is a good possibility that it will disappear and change the situation for you. So think about that first. But secondly, I wanted to talk with Patrick and Casey here, and let's kind of go over what we see as positives and negatives if this does actually disappear. Now, it hasn't been officially announced, but there is rumblings that the Trump administration is looking to remove it. So, what do you think, guys? What possibilities exist if this does disappear?
So I want to start with a statement and a question. Um, on this, we've got for sure to the end of December because it's locked in. December
Mhm.
31st midnight, or actually 11:59:59. That's when, assuming that you're on the calendar with the rest of the country and not some slanted corporate thing where your fiscal year is another month, uh, it ends and it's locked in. That's the law. The way this is structured is it set up that this just continues and so that the same thing goes on next year, or I mean,
Yep.
assuming they don't find
Currently, it
any
is. Currently, it
standard.
will go into the next year. But
Mhm.
Okay,
as soon as the
that's enough.
administration changes, they could change the rules
Right. They
as
can
soon as
find
they're in
pull
office.
strings. Well, the reason I
Mhm.
ask is either this last credit, the one that Tesla didn't qualify for, or ran out real early with Nissan and Chevy, um, either that one or the one for the hybrids way back. Uh, they had to set it up again and again. So that one would have, if it was set up that way, it would already be in danger. But if it's just a blanket until they rescind it or until they run out of money, then we, assuming that nobody messes with it, then you might have until 11:59:59 December 31st of 2025. But do not count on that uh,
Right.
until they say themselves. Uh, they these people have all said we don't want it, we don't like it, isn't necessary, it's not fair, this, that, and the other, and we kind of have to take them at their word based on what we've seen that they will try to do, whether they'll succeed or not, but what they will try to do, and if explicitly said this is what we want. Last time, everything they said that to, they attempted. They did not succeed at everything, but if this is important to you, try to get it done before December 31st
Yeah.
because it might not be there for 2025. But yes, you'll file these taxes in 2025, but it'll be for calendar year 2024. That is done, so you are good. But 2025, even if it's by law, it's good, does not mean they won't mess with it. So be
Right.
careful.
So Mark, you asked about positives and negatives. I think I'd rather start with the negatives in this case.
Sales
So
go down.
under the Inflation Reduction Act, there are the incentive applies to vehicles that are made in North America, and with increasing content over time. And there have been infrastructure buildup to support that. There are battery cell factories that are being built in various locations and in North America. because they want to be able to meet these higher standard requirements. Well, if the incentive goes away completely, now the investment, it may or may not make sense to continue with it, which means that it may or may not be a stranded asset. And then if instead they say, well, we can just import cars from China, then now you have to instead do something to prevent that, like put tariffs in place to keep the U.S. companies competitive. Where what the plan that we have now, I think, is the right plan, and instead you could have this problem where it makes U.S. vehicles not very competitive if this goes away, especially in the EV space. So I really hope that it stays around, and that the plan for having these more locally manufactured increases. We've talked about on the show how having local supply chains helps with resiliency, and this is building that infrastructure up. And
The infrastructure plan.
yeah, JB Straubel recently received an award for his work at Redwood Materials. And in his acceptance speech, one of the things that they had a little fireside chat as part of it, one of the things he said that I thought was really cool was that every battery that we import into the US today is raw materials for the next generation of batteries that does not have to be imported, because we have those materials. And if you're importing,
not mined, not imported.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Not mined, not imported. Whereas if you're bringing in crude oil from the Middle East, you have to do that over and over and over again. You can't recycle that and make it into new crude oil. It's burned. It's gone. And
You're
that's not the
gonna
case
lithium
with battery
et cetera
materials.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. So
you
there's
have
so
to-
many things that this helps support. It gets us in the right direction. It gets us so that we're going towards our future free from fossil fuels. So I hope it sticks around.
Me too.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that there's so much infrastructure that's being built to support this, and again to qualify for it going forward.
Mhm.
I can't imagine. I can. I think it'd be very difficult for companies that have spent the money to plan and to start to build. And then for the rug to be pulled out from underneath them because the new administration is changing direction. I think that's going to be very difficult for anyone. And as you mentioned, their assets could become stranded. It may not be financially viable to continue with the construction, but you've spent X amount to already start, and it's incomplete and it can do nothing for you, and you just decide to pull the plug. And then we're talking job loss too. We're talking the jobs that were supposed to be people in place at these new facilities, those go away. We look at some of the companies that have built their EV plan based on the cost of EVs and the 7,500 contributing to knock the price off and get a little more even with gasoline cars, so they can sell more, so they can push the volume higher, so that all these dominoes. And if you pull that out, that could be real difficult for the companies that have spent the money already or have spent the time on it and the planning on it. It is going to be trouble for anyone that has got involved with this. I know half a dozen plants are now under construction just in my area. Battery plants, processing, car lines, new car lines going in place for EVs. There's many of them that are already building. In fact, we've got a couple of them that are producing already. So this is a real question mark for many companies that have already invested in the EV infrastructure.
Yeah, if you were already profitable, it has the potential to send you back to unprofitable. If you mapped out a path to break even, that date has just changed the whole calculus. So you have to sit down with your finance team and see what happens. And Elon's already promised us this will hurt everybody else a lot. And he puts on a brave face to say this isn't going to affect Tesla much. But it will. Look at what they've been doing with programs, just incentives inside Tesla, and see what they've done to the sales numbers. now add $7,500 back to every car and see what happens. It will slow down.
Right.
Now, if you look at the overall picture as it relates to Tesla, if every other car company has to forget about that $7,500 in their pricing structure, I think Tesla certainly could do a little bit better than those other companies, because Tesla's already profitable with higher margins of profit than other car companies. So they could weather that storm somewhat. But as Casey
They
mentioned,
might only go $4,500.
there's still going to be a few $1,000s added to the price of the car. Yes, those other companies are not going to be able to afford it, but isn't that going to push the entire EV movement back? Because some that aren't going to buy a Tesla car in the first place for whatever reason, they're now getting another $7,500 on their car coming from another manufacturer that was in the beginning stages, that hasn't got the volume pushed up yet, and that has to charge more in order to have, you know, a sight on profit in the future if they can sell a volume of cars. That can affect that too.
Yeah, they're not running a charity or a hobby. It's a business. So if they can't make money, or at least not lose money, they're not going to do it.
That's right.
Right. I think this really only slows down the US, and that's a problem, because this is the future of transportation. EVs are a growing market share, and it's going to continue to be a growing market share. I don't think that changes if this goes away. But what it does is it means
Ethiopia, and then Norway's coming up next year, and a bunch of others really quick succession are going to follow with their gas car bans.
Right. So all it does is put the U.S. behind on the technology adoption curve, and that's not where you want to be.
I would add it's going to pair with Canada too. Like we're so tied to the U.S. auto pact that we're not going to be able to weather it any better than the U.S.
Right.
We've got our auto industries are entwined. You said the U.S. auto, it's the Canada auto, the Mexico auto industry. They're all one.
Absolutely.
But Canada, you guys just put 100% import tax tariff on.
We follow the U.S. and we have added 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. Yes.
$50,000 EV from China is now $100,000 EV because yes, the receiving company pays the tariff, but again, it's not a charity, and they will pass that cost right back on to whoever buys the car. So that $50,000 car became a $100,000 car, and China paid nothing.
And just like we were discussing before about infrastructure being local and sourcing local, that's what this whole plan was designed to do: bring manufacturing back to North America, push jobs back into North America, and allow us to supply our own cars to our own people and benefit from the higher paying jobs that are producing the cars. If you're just going to import them from someplace else at a cheap price, how is our auto industry ever going to get up to a volume where we can compete with those Chinese cars? China's been doing this for 15 plus years in the EV space. They've got a centralized government that can force the market a certain way. In a democracy like the United States and Canada, we cannot do that with industry. We have to go at a gentler pace. We have to go at a slower pace. But China can throw the sledgehammer down and say, this is all we're making. This is all you're buying. That's it. And if you don't like it, lump it. But we can't do that here. And that is the difference when it comes to the two markets.
The other benefit of doing it this way is as you just kind of coax them into doing the right thing, and then their volumes come up, they can suddenly afford to export competitively, maybe even against China, but that depends if we want to make those here and ship them overseas. But for the mainstream meat of the market, they can just take an American car, change the headlights, make sure the doors, locks, bumpers, all that match, and then send it somewhere else because they'll have the volume. That was the other half of this incentive thing. That's also in jeopardy right now.
Yeah, so we've got this perplexing thing. There's not a lot of positives I can see. I don't know if, as you mentioned, Casey, if Elon's putting on a brave face about this because he knows it's going to happen, and like it or lump it, they're going to have to deal with it. If you eliminate the subsidies from all the car manufacturers, maybe Tesla comes out ahead. because they have the ability with their profit margins to maybe provide a little bit more of that 7,500 baked into the price, but still charging a little bit more than the others. And maybe that's the case, is that others will give up on their EV program. They'll just stop. And then the only game in town, realistically, will be a Tesla car, and they believe that that will push sales a little higher. I can't see that working too well because, of course, it's also the administration's also not going to try to push EV adoption at all if they do this, I would imagine. And what we'll be doing is these other car companies will just be producing more gasoline cars at a cheaper price. They're right. They will never get the three of us to go back to a gasoline car, but we're talking about bringing more people into the EV tent, making it bigger and expanding it. We're a pretty good size now. We've been expanding rapidly, but this is going to put somewhat of the brakes on a lot of this. And I have a feeling that EVs will continue to grow. It's just that it's going to be ratcheted down on the percentage.
And even if you are a fan of Tesla, Chevy, whoever, if all the competition goes away, your car is now stuck where it is because they have no reason to make it better. They might do this and that here and there, but it's not going to be like we have today, where it's like, we've improved the efficiency by this, or hey, we added this feature. That's gone. But there is a little bit of silver lining to this. As Mark mentioned at the beginning of all of this, look at all of these people that are going to be affected, from refineries, processing, to the plant builders, the workers. There is hopefully enough pressure on the lawmakers to be like, hey, that's my job.
We can't just completely cut it off.
Yeah, reshape it, whatever. But don't. That's my job. Don't cut my job. And then hopefully that pressure is enough for them to stand up for the strongman pressure from the top. Because when you're listening to them talk right now, like, they have their own opinions, but whatever the other guy says is what they're going to do. So hopefully this is enough coming from the other side that they're like, yeah, I don't care what he says. I'm going to keep Bobby and Susie and Jimmy in the plant so that they don't come and find me and replace me with somebody else.
This is where we're going to turn it over to you, the viewing audience, the listening audience. We want to hear from you in the comments about what you think about this situation. Do you see any positives? Are we missing something? Do you see other negatives? Put it in the comments. Let us know what you think about this change that apparently is coming with the new administration. What makes sense to you? What doesn't make sense? We want to hear from you. And with that, let's wrap it up. Casey, any shout outs for the week?
Yeah. Catch us on Wednesday for the Tesla Life Live.
That's right. Coming up live on Wednesday. Patrick, any shout outs from you?
Just a quick one. Check out my writings at carswithcords.net. Thanks.
Very good. Very good. Well, thanks everyone for being with us this evening. If you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up on the video, press that subscribe button, and we will catch you next time and find out what's happening in the Tesla life.